Hey, Blender Bob here. This is an emergency Blender Bob because I wasn't planning to do it because I'm actually working on one about file formats and another one about RenderMan. But yesterday something happened. I was watching Blender today and Pablo said this.
What if all of this was just a prototype? And what if if you start from scratch, geometry nodes today, what would you do?
So I felt like he was talking to me directly, like he was asking for my input, so I had to do something. And I was so excited to do this Blender Bob, I didn't even have time to shave. Well, okay, I didn't shave for like a week, but whatever. And this is a Blender Bob that's only for the Blender Institute. I'm not going to publish it on Facebook and everything and all this stuff. This is only for you guys. Now, I know that there are some people at the Blender Institute who watch Blender Bob because the last thing I did about UDIMS had a lot of suggestions, and like in the next few days, people started to work on it and fix some stuff and make some modifications according to what I asked, which is awesome. I feel like blessed. Thank you so much. So, while I have your attention, let's talk about geometry nodes. Actually, all the nodes. I'm going to show you some stuff in Maya. Yes, the evil word, Maya. But I don't want you to do it like Maya, because I know what you're going to say. It's like, well, if you like Maya so much, why don't you just go back to Maya? And we don't want Blender to become another Maya. I know that. And I don't want Blender to become another Maya. I gave 24 years of my life to Maya. I don't want to go there anymore. I'm Blender Bob. But doesn't mean we cannot get inspired. So I'm going to show you some things that are done in Maya, what works, what doesn't work, and what could be cool in Blender if we did something similar or inspired by. So here we go. Okay, so I create a cube here, and you can see in the node editor at the bottom, it created everything automatically for me. If I select the face and I delete it, it will automatically add the delete component here in the middle of the graph. Here's something very cool that I think you should steal from Maya. Here you can click one time to see what's connected, and if you click another one, you can see everything that's available. Very nice. So it makes it cleaner. You don't have to carry these very big nodes. Now I can bypass it. I can reconnect it like this, and you can see I don't have the delete component anymore. And I can reconnect it here and connect this to this, and now it's back. Okay, now I'm going to bevel my cube. So it added a bevel node here. And I have all the settings here I can modify. I will continue with the editing. Let's delete one more face. So I'll just clean up a little bit here. Select the face at the bottom. I will delete it. Now at this point in Blender, this is not something we could do with a modifier because we would lose the bevel that was there. Actually, we would need to apply the modifier and then we lose the ability to make modifications later. You can see the entire history here in the channel box, and I can click on any of them and make modifications later. So here I can change the bevel from 2 to 3. Of course, I lose the deleted face here because the polygon count is not the same anymore. The polygon order is different. So obviously it's not going to work. Let's create this node here that's kind of in the way, it does nothing. Now that's something that needs to be thought about. How do you deal with all the nodes that are useless, that don't have any impact anymore on the geometry? We want to keep everything clean. Now you can imagine that if you keep modifying your geometry, after a while it becomes super heavy, you get a lot of nodes. Actually the nodes, we never see them when we work, when we model, it's all transparent. It's the user doesn't need to see all this stuff in the geometry node. Well, not geometry node, but in the node editor. I'm just showing you this as an example. And if it becomes too heavy, you reach a point where you need to delete the history, or if you need to do some binding for skeletons and stuff, obviously you will need to delete the history so you get a clean geometry. And that's what I'm going to do now, delete the history, and now I don't have anything anymore, it's just a clean geometry. So as I mentioned before, all this stuff is created automatically, but you could do it manually if you want to, but it's not user-friendly. It's not that simple. It's not like the GeoNode in Blender. So I could create a polycube, but you don't see the cube anywhere because it doesn't have a shape. So I need to create a shape, but there are no such thing as shape. Whoops, shape. No, there's nothing. I cannot find it. Because this is done automatically when you actually create a cube. So that's why I say this is not user-friendly. This is transparent to the user. It's just showing you everything that's there. So I create a cube, you see now it created the shape and it connected to the initial shader automatically. Same thing, for example, bevels. If I create a polybevel node, I have it here, I need to connect it, I'll expand it. So how do I connect it? Where's the input? I don't see it, I don't see anything. How is it working? If I do it for real in the geometry itself, if I go like this and just add my bevel, now it connects everything, and you see it connected the input polymesh and manip matrix, whatever that is. And this wasn't even available when I tried to do it manually. So the node editor, I would call it more of a node viewer because it can show you everything that's going on under the hood in Maya, but for editing, it's not the best thing. And that's what I mean by don't do it like Maya. The node editor supports absolutely everything. It's not just the geometry and the shaders. For example, if I add some particles to this object, emit from object, you can see it created all the network here with the solver and everything to do the particles. And I'm glad it did it automatically because I don't see myself connecting all this stuff manually. So physics, model, textures, everything can be managed in the same area. If you go into Hypershade, which is like the shader editor in Blender, it's the same nodes, it's the same system, it's just that it filters only the shading stuff, so you don't see all the particles and all the crap that you don't need when you do your shading. Now this is something I dearly miss in Blender. In Blender, the shaders, they live in their little bubble. They don't want to talk to anyone else. They're like, this is my world, okay, and I got all my textures and I got all my graph, but it's mine, okay, and I don't want to hear about you. Just get out, okay? So even if you have an object with multiple shaders on it, in the shader editor, you cannot see all the shaders at the same time. You can only see them one by one. So what if I want to take part of the shading tree and connect it to another shader, to another object, or the same object, or whatever? I just cannot do this in Blender. Why? This is an example here. I just drag another shader in the Hypershade and you can see I got both of them there. And if I want to connect the bump into the other one, I just take it and connect it. Another thing I would like to see in Blender is a general view of all the shaders with an icon, a big one, all of them together. Not this little tiny icon that you can only see in the menu, in a pop-up menu. No, I want to see everything. I want a general view of all the shaders. Here I have a sphere with 2 different shaders on it. If I click this button here, it will show me all the shaders that are connected to the same geometry, which is very awesome. In this case, this model also have multiple shaders on it. It has a skeleton and animation. If we look at it in the node editor, there's no filtering right now, so I see everything in there. So you can see here, this is the geometry itself. These are all the shaders that are connected to it, and these are all the bones, and you have the skin cluster, and you have all this stuff that's available for you. Okay, let's go back to Blender. Whew, I feel better already. Okay, Pablo was talking the other day about the switch node, and you had like this true and false input stuff and everything. This is how I would like to have it. In this case, it's hard-coded to 10, but the idea would be to have 2 inputs, because it's a switch node, you need to switch to at least 2 things, and then it would dynamically add more inputs as you drag them into the node. I mean, something similar, but for geometry nodes. And then you just change the value here. Well, I plugged something in this case, but you could just manually change which channel you want as the input. Now, if this is the kind of input you're looking for, well, I have a long list of stuff I can suggest to you, but I'm not going to make a video about all of them. It would take too long. But if you want, for example, I don't know, fly me to Amsterdam for a week, I would be more than happy to spend time with the developers and talk about it and see how we can make Blender better. And I'm double vaccinated already. And my baggage is already packed. I'm good to go. All right. Cheers.